I never imagined my life would take such a dramatic turn in the middle of a chilly November evening. At 35, I considered myself a dedicated professional with a strong marriage to Andrew, my husband of 8 years. We lived comfortably in a suburb just outside of Denver, where I worked as an executive assistant at a fast-growing tech company. Life was predictable, stable, and, if I was being honest, somewhat mundane. That all changed the night I stayed late at the office, trying to finish a project for my boss, Mr. Collins. Mr. Collins, or Ethan as he insisted I call him, was a man in his early 40s. He was sharp, ambitious, and undeniably attractive. With his dark hair, piercing blue eyes, and an air of confidence that seemed to fill any room he entered, it was no wonder he was so successful. But beyond his good looks, he was also a demanding boss who expected nothing less than perfection from his team, especially from me, his right-hand woman. That evening, the office was eerily quiet as I typed away at my desk, the only light coming from my computer screen and the dim glow of the city skyline through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Ethan had left hours earlier for a meeting, or so I thought. When I heard the sound of the elevator doors opening, I assumed it was just the cleaning crew. But when I looked up, there he was, standing in the doorway of his office, watching me with an intensity that sent a shiver down my spine. "Emily," he said, his voice low and smooth, "what are you still doing here?" I quickly straightened up, trying to appear composed. "Just finishing up the presentation for tomorrow's meeting, Mr. Collins. I wanted to make sure everything was perfect." He smiled, a small, almost predatory grin that made my heart race. "You always do go above and beyond, don't you? That's why I knew I could count on you." I felt a blush creep up my neck as I turned back to my computer, trying to focus on the task at hand. But I could feel his eyes on me, studying me, and it was becoming harder to ignore the tension in the air. "I appreciate your dedication, Emily," he continued, stepping closer until he was standing right behind me. I could feel the warmth of his body, the faint scent of his cologne filling my senses. "But you shouldn't work so hard. It's important to have balance, don't you think?" I swallowed hard, my hands trembling slightly as I typed. "Yes, of course. I want to make sure everything is perfect for tomorrow." He leaned in, his breath warm against my ear. "Perfection is overrated," he whispered. "Sometimes it's the imperfections that make something truly special." My breath hitched, my mind racing as I tried to process what was happening. Was he flirting with me? Or was I imagining things? I had always admired Ethan from a distance, but I never thought he saw me as anything more than his capable assistant. "Emily," he said, his voice softer now, almost tender, "look at me." I hesitated, but slowly turned to face him. His blue eyes bore into mine, and I felt a wave of heat rush through me. There was something in his gaze that I had never seen before, something that made my pulse quicken and my stomach flutter. "You're more than just an assistant," he murmured, his hand reaching out to gently brush a strand of hair behind my ear. "You're special, Emily. And I think you know that." I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came out. I was too stunned, too overwhelmed by the sudden shift in our dynamic. Ethan had always been charming, but this was different. This was personal. Before I could fully comprehend what was happening, he leaned in and pressed his lips to mine. The kiss was soft at first, almost hesitant, as if he was giving me a chance to pull away. But when I didn't, he deepened the kiss, his hand sliding to the back of my neck, holding me in place. My mind screamed at me to stop, to push him away, but my body betrayed me. I kissed him back, my hands finding their way to his chest, feeling the strong, steady beat of his heart beneath my fingertips. It was wrong, I knew it was, but in that moment, all I could think about was how good it felt to be wanted, to be desired by a man like Ethan. When we finally pulled apart, both of us were breathing heavily, our hearts pounding in unison. I stared up at him, my mind a whirlwind of emotions. Guilt, desire, confusion. "Ethan," I whispered, my voice trembling. "We can't. I'm married, and you're my boss." "I know," he replied, his hand still resting on the back of my neck, his thumb gently stroking my skin. "But I can't help how I feel, Emily. I've been fighting it for so long, trying to stay professional, but it's becoming impossible. I want you, and I think you want me too. His words sent a jolt of electricity through me, my resolve weakening with each passing second. I knew I should stop this, put an end to it before it went any further, but the truth was, I did want him. I wanted him in a way I hadn't wanted anyone in a long time. Not even Andrew. We have to be careful, I finally managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. No one can know. He smiled, a slow, seductive smile that made my heart skip a beat. It'll be our little secret, he promised, leaning in to kiss me again, this time with more urgency, more passion. What happened next was a blur of heat and desire. Ethan guided me to his office, the door clicking shut behind us as we gave in to the overwhelming attraction that had been building between us for months. It was exhilarating, thrilling in a way I hadn't experienced in years. I felt alive, wanted, and completely consumed by the moment. But as the night wore on and the initial rush began to fade, reality came crashing down around me. What had I done? How could I have let things go this far? I was a married woman, and Ethan was my boss. The consequences of our actions could be disastrous, not just for me, but for both of us. As we lay there, tangled together on the sleek leather couch in his office, I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of guilt gnawing at me. I thought of Andrew, of the life we had built together, and the trust one had just shattered. How could I face him now, knowing what I had done? Ethan seemed to sense my turmoil. He reached out, gently brushing a tear from my cheek. "Emily, don't regret this," he murmured, his voice filled with sincerity. "What we have, it's real. And I don't want you to feel guilty about it." "But I do," I confessed, my voice breaking. "Ethan, I'm married. This is wrong, and we both know it." He sighed, his expression softening. "I know it's complicated, and I know you're struggling with this. But I don't regret what happened tonight, and I don't think you do either. We'll figure it out together, okay?" I nodded, but deep down, I knew that figuring it out wasn't going to be easy. The line we had crossed was one that couldn't be uncrossed, and the repercussions of our actions were sure to follow us, no matter how hard we tried to keep it a secret. The following days were a mix of intense emotions: passion, guilt, fear. Ethan and I continued to see each other in secret, meeting after hours in his office, sneaking glances and touches during the day when no one was looking. It was exhilarating, but also exhausting. The constant fear of being caught, the weight of the lies I was telling Andrew, it was all starting to take its toll.